So a very warm welcome to the audience that has gathered on this beautiful morning, on this beautiful topic of gender inclusion by a very able speaker. By the gesture of the guest itself in the beginning, she has made us feel so comfortable. And thanks to Amit ma'am for bringing us such a wonderful speaker. And as we have been discussing through gender equity, there have been lots of stereotyping. There has been lot of labeling. So we have tried from our side to break those labels, to break those stereotypes and bring out a world, bring out a place, bring out a college, which is one for everybody. So that's the work of gender equity that we have been doing under the able guidance of our principal, our team of management. Amit ma'am, of course, you being a wonderful human being and a wonderful person from within who feels that everybody is so human. And we have our team coordinator as Dr. Bhushan Arekar from the Department of Political Science, who is the IQAC coordinator. We have Dr. Madhura Kalamkar, professor, principal of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti's Law College, and she is also an active member in the committee. I also have Pranali ma'am with me, okay, who will be joining us shortly. She has been always been a very big support pillar for our committee. Just to give you an idea, Rachna ma'am, what the Gender Equity Committee has been doing in these many years, as Siddhant was talking about, we have had sessions on different aspects of gender. As you said, that we also believe that gender is something which is a fluid concept. You cannot just fit them into boxes. And that is the reason why we felt that students also need to be sensitized. Students as well as teachers both need to be sensitized. So we have conducted guest lectures. One of our highlight lectures was 2 years ago. We had a lecture by Gauri Sawant, Sri Gauri Sawant, and she gave about her life, and the idea which came up, it left us so emotional. Everybody was touched by her life. Then we had a workshop by Mr. Sumit Pawar, who is from the LGBT community, and he sensitized the teachers about the identity of the gender identities related to LGBTQA. And then we had some more talks related, which were centered on women's issue. We had film screenings which were related to women issue. Last time we had on children issue related to gender, all thanks to brilliant ideas which come through Amit madam. Sometimes we put in the suggestions. We even take the student suggestion into account. And then we have something called as gender champions, which we conduct every year as per the UGC norms. And last year we had fantastic participation by students. And the topic that we gave also was very interesting. We asked the students to present on a personality who has excelled in the field which is labeled for the other gender. That is a man excelling in a field which is so-called labeled for a woman, or a woman excelling in a field which is so-called for a man, or even a transgender person who has excelled. And our students did fantastic presentations, picking up classical dancers, male classical dancers, picking up women IPS officers, picking up transgender human rights activists, as well as advocates and doctors, first in their kind. So we had a plethora of programs where we tried to sensitize people. And today we have our esteemed guest with us, Rachna Bharadwaj ma'am, who will be delivering a lecture on gender inclusion, which I'm sure will be a very wonderful topic. And we have with us all the blessings from our authorities, though they may not be here as now because things are online and people have been keeping a lot of busy. There have been so many meetings and all, but they have conveyed their best wishes to us. I hope I'm not missing anybody, Amit ma'am, from the list.
No, no, no. Just think that, yes, they have been very, very helpful to us, our authority, and inspired us. Especially, Madam has conveyed to me that yesterday, sure, I'll be there. So maybe because of the admission process going on, and at the same time, lectures, parallel, everything going on, therefore this delay.
I also take this opportunity to welcome our Vice Principal, Dr.
Yes.
Sneha Deuskar, Madam, who has been heading the things very well in the absence of principals, attending all the function. Welcome, Sneha, Madam. And I would request you to kindly address the gathering. Just a
Yes.
short welcome, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you, Sneha Madam, for being here.
Yes, yes. A very good morning. On behalf of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti's Ram Niranjan Jhunjhunwala College, the principal, even the director, and myself, welcome today's speaker, Dr. Rachna. The world is changing at the fast pace and progress is unfolding at a subtle level. Dialogue on gender equity is becoming more deeper. It has not only improved our understanding about it, but has impacted our life and in diverse ways. The more we study, discuss, and dwell upon it, the more meaningful it will become. To enrich the dialogue on gender, we have Dr. Rachna Bharadwaj here amidst us, and she will focus on the topic gender inclusion. I'm sure it will enrich our perspective on gender and its content. It will educate us about the dimensions as gender. So welcome, ma'am, and over to you. We are eager to listen to you.
Thank you so much, Sneha Madam. I also take this opportunity to welcome our committee member, Pranali Ma'am, who has joined after the lecture. And we also have colleagues from other department. Welcome, Datta Ma'am, for this lecture. Thank you for sparing your time and attending this session. Thank you so much. I now request Amit Ma'am to formally introduce our guest.
Yeah. Can you minimize this thing?
So a formal welcome to you, Dr. Rachna Bharadwaj.
Yeah, just a second. I wanted to just minimize the whole screen. Can you stop sharing?
Stop sharing now. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I can go to my. Sorry. Just a second.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Something is going haywire today. I had kept it open, but yeah. So thank you very much, Professor Deepak Pujari. I'm so glad that Sneha Madam and my friend Baishakhi Madam, who is coordinator for WDC, that is Women Development Cell, and Pranali is there always helping me out, and my other friends, student friends. I'm so glad that in large number you all have come in the morning, and it is such a great pleasure that we have Dr. Rachna Bharadwaj. She is such a nice human being, extremely scholarly, highly intellectual, highly analytical, and always having an open dialogue, and very receptive person at the same time. And her inputs have been in all our classes, when we are talking and discussing, has been very valuable. Thank you for being there and accepting our invitation. I would give a short introduction. She's really a polymath, handling many, multitasking and doing so many things at the same time. And these things are not as such connected, but they are highly diversified. They are on the extremes. And today's time, that is the post-modern or maybe post-postmodern time, that we are seeing that we need to have multidisciplinary approach in everything. Otherwise, life remains in seclusion and we are devoid of knowledge. So I introduce my very good friend and very good friend, actually. We are both so young and that gives so much of joy. Advocate Dr. Rachna Bharadwaj, who is MBBS from Pune, MD from Mumbai, and she was working in Tata Memorial Hospital. LLB from Mumbai University, LLM from again Mumbai University, postgraduate diploma in intellectual property rights and postgraduate diploma in MLE from Bangalore. MA and postgraduate advanced diploma in Pali. MPhil in Pali, which is ongoing, and MA, I think she has completed in philosophy.
Waiting my results.
Yeah. No, I mean, because now I think the results are also out probably. No, it's yet to come. Okay. Dr. Bharadwaj is an advocate registered with the original side of the Bombay High Court. Her field of work is intellectual property right and medico-legal law litigation. Currently, she is working as an independent legal and medico-legal advisor and consultant. Her area of work is diverse and includes work in the field of oncopathology, HIV/AIDS, medical negligence and healthcare laws, intellectual property rights as well, drug trial regulations, and cyber law and cyber forensics. She has lectured extensively on various legal and medico-legal issues at premier institutes in India. She has been on the panels of various conferences on issues related to legal and ethical issues in medicine and HIV/AIDS. She has written several articles in India Business Law Journal on issues related to patents, patent linkages, clinical trial regulations, and medical negligence. She has been a visiting faculty of law at the University of Mumbai. She is an ex-professor of pathology and has worked at several hospitals in Mumbai, Pune, and Chennai in various capacities since 1989. She's a medical doctor who has turned an advocate and is registered with the original side of Bombay High Court. She has worked in law firms and was an AVP, medico-legal, at Reliance Foundation Hospital. She is a versatile speaker and has spoken on various national, international forums. Her academic interests are in the area of Pali and Buddhist studies and philosophy. And I know her because also as a Vipassana trainer. So you can imagine we are meeting such a stalwart. Thank you for being there. And we request you to address the gathering.
Amit ma'am, just a minute.
Yeah.
We have with us Principal of Law College, Madhura Madam.
Madhura Madam, yeah.
A very warm welcome, Madhura ma'am. And if you could just give your words of encouragement on this topic, Madhura ma'am.
Yes, good morning all.
Thank you for being there.
Yeah, on behalf of RG College and also on behalf of Hindi Vidya Praja Samiti College of Law, we welcome you, madam, for today's webinar and really excited to hear you for the term gender inclusion. As we are aware that this term is not actually been practically observed because of the unawareness. So I think awareness is very much important for this, and this particular fact which we can see and which we can observe in the area where there is a unemployment situation is highly emerged. So because of that, many women, they are not able to get the proper we can say a proper judgment in their favor because of they are not aware about the laws which are benefited for them, though that is there in a civil or in a criminal also. So that things should be known by all the women. And I think today's speaker will definitely highlight on this points. So thank you so much, and I'm really eagerly excited, madam, to hear you. Over to you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, Rachna ma'am, now we'll request you, after hearing so much about you, about your multifaceted personality, even now we are eager to hear about the talk that you are going to give on gender inclusion. Over to you, Rachna ma'am.
So, First of all, I really would like to thank the principal of Junjunwala, Dr. Himanshu Dauda, Director Dr. Usha Mukundan, the Vice Principals Dr. Kiran Kulwankar, Dr. Sneha Deuskar, Captain Naik, of course, Dr. Madhura, and the Gender Equity Committee members. Of course, Pranali is here from that team. So, and my special thanks to Dr. Amit Valmiki, who's the head of the Department of Philosophy. She's also my teacher in philosophy, so I've learned a lot from her. And thank you really, Dr. Amit, for entrusting me with such an important topic, and a topic which is so relevant today. Especially after, the Supreme Court has given a great verdict as far as the, Section 377 or decriminalizing the homosexual provisions are concerned. So now, the way I would sort of go about this is I would speak a little bit about the Indian perspective on homosexuality. What are the myths about gender? Then what are the issues of homosexuality and the medical fraternity? And what is it that now, which was regarded as a illness? So does it recognize still as an illness? So, we will talk a little bit about that. Then, of course, the different, the landmark Stonewall uprising that took place in 1969. Then we also need to understand what these gendered identities are. Because, we are brought up in a very binary fashion. And so it's important and relevant to really understand what these gendered identities really are. And of course, what are the provisions in the Indian legal system which prevent or rather integrate, binaries and the non-binaries and work for inclusion. We would be discussing the key issues and, the problems which are faced by the non-binary communities and what is the way forward. So when we see the, the historical perspective as far as India is concerned, we see this recognition of, homosexuality as a very normal feature. And we see that even in, Rig Veda, where Vikriti evam Vikriti is something which means that seems unnatural is also natural. Now, some of the scholars actually reinterpret it as that you recognize the dimensions of human life and like all forms of universal diversity. Now, India is a land of the Kama Sutra, and there is a chapter on erotic homosexual behaviors, which describes eunuchs or the other sex and performing oral sex on men. There also, the third gender was very well integrated into the, in the Hindu philosophical system, right since the Vedic times. Even Manusmriti and Sushruta, they asserted that some people are born with either the male or the female gender, or some are even sexually neuter. And as a matter of fact, very natural biology. So this was very well accepted. Now, some of the Hindu sects also, like Hijras, have many divinities who are androgynous. Some of the deities were intersex, and they manifested all three genders. Now, also we have seen that there are, the mythological stories that we've heard and we've grown as children. We see that, there are deities with female moods, the male deities having female moods, and vice versa, the female deities with the male moods. So we see the Durga turning into Kali, and, we see all these kind of moods, which are nothing but reflection of, the duality that exists in us as human beings. We also hear, the deities that were born from two males or two females, or from single male and single female. So, in this context, we have the Shiva, Lord Shiva, and Mohini. The reference of Mohini. Mohini was actually an alluded form of Lord Vishnu. So, and their union, and Shiva was very attracted to Mohini, and this gay union gave rise to Ayyappa. So Ayyappa Swami, who's also worshipped. So this was supposed to be an outcome of a gay union. Now, deities who also avoid the opposite sex. So we've heard of that as well. And of course, they had companions of the same sex. In the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955, the marriage as per the Hindu is between two persons who enter into a wedlock. So there itself, there is no, restriction on a man marrying a woman. So it could be a man marrying another man. So same-sex marriages are permissible even as per the law. And we see that a lot of times the Hindu priests, have solemnized the marriages of the same-sex individuals. The Hindu theories do not, of course, condemn lesbian relationship, and some third gendered were very highly regarded. So we hear of a Shikhandi in the Mahabharata. So these were very normal, commonplace narratives that were there. Now, the time when we started becoming homophobic was when we had a lot of, colonial British government that was there, which was anti-homosexuality. So a lot of these Abrahamic religions, which were against homosexuality or gay unions, and that is what makes the society homophobic by and large, not only in India but also abroad. So as being an Indian, I think it was a more open society, more inclusive. But the fact that we have to sort of now address inclusion is somewhere we have sort of forgotten that culture of ours. But it's great because it has now been legalized. So because legality also gives us sort of a stamp on the identity, and it's easier then to sort of go ahead. Now, there are some myths and misconceptions about gender that we feel that children are too young to know their gender. Whereas, a child who first becomes aware of his gender is at the age of, maybe 3 or maybe 4. So it's not as uncommon for children to really know their genders. And of course, there is a thing that, we always about, that we should not speak about sex, and we should not speak about gender diversity to young children. So, so of course, there is a big challenge, because, here we have not even come to terms with imparting sex education to primary level students, because there's a lot of, resistance from parents itself, because I know that I was a part of the, being in the PTA, and I was a president in the PTA, and I realized that the parents are not open to that dialogue. So, gender diversity is a very, very difficult thing now to integrate into the mainstream, but is the need of the hour. Now, we also have this misconception that only transgender, only they declare that, it at a very young age that they are transgenders. And that there are only two genders, that there is a boy and a girl, a man and a woman. This is how the children are brought up in the in society. Now, many transgender children change their mind about their genders, and being transgenders or non-binary is a sign of mental illness, and that is a problem, because that led to a lot of stigmatization and the marginalization of these communities. The transgender and non-binary people are doomed to live an unhappy life, which is of course a myth. Now, as far as homosexuality and the perceptions of, the psychiatric community or the medical community go, the American Psychiatric Association in 1953 declassified homosexuality as a mental illness. But of course, there was only instead of saying that it was a mental illness, they said it's a shift to sexual orientation disturbance. But however, it opened the field of, developing these sexual identities. So there was not only, healthy heterosexual and deviant others. So they somewhere were getting into the mainstream line. Now, it was important for homosexuals as well as heterosexuals who engage in anal intercourse, and that any act, without without in the normal way, would amount to a deviant behavior. This was sort of normalized in a way. So the DSM-5 actually does not describe a homosexual as a mental disorder at all. And this happened very late in 2011. And what did this depathologization of homosexuality do was to open up a whole, avenue for outreach programs as far as health issues of this community was concerned. So, there was also acceptance, once you said that this is not a mental disorder, there was more acceptance from society as well. And it removed the mental stigma and paved the way to, for these communities to sort of form, organizations and form the gay liberation movement actually started from 1984. And of course, the focus was also, on health issues and the mental health issues of this community. So just to go about how these movements really started, we see that, the gay community was completely being, targeted in the gay bars. And, there were a lot of police raids that which were very common in the US in the 1960s. And because homosexuality was a criminal offense. It was very late in 1980 when it was sort of legalized. So there's a very important, Stonewall era or the uprising, which happened on June 28, 1969. Now, Stonewall Inn was a very popular gay bar in the New York, where, this was of course run by the mafia, but who had sanctions of the police and everybody, but they were raided from time to time. And this was a nuisance, and, they would also sort of harass these LGBTQIA plus community. Now, on June 28, 1969, I mean, there was this clash between, and there was a protest which happened, and it was almost like a rioting kind of a situation. Of course, they even say that this was a riot, but it was more of a protest that was happening where, this community was fighting for their rights and the right to equality and be integrated into the mainstream. So this was like a landmark kind of a protest, which lasted for a good 6 days. And this greatly sort of changed the discourse around the LGBT. I mean, this is long LGBTQIA plus, but I would just say LGBT for, maybe ease of conversation. Now, this changed this LGBT activism in the US. And so the Stonewall was a shift primarily for white cisgender people as people of color and gender non-conforming. And, people didn't have to, conceal their identities anymore because they were not marginalized any further. So, the first Pride March to commemorate this particular Stonewall in uprising is celebrated every year, as the Pride March. And, globally now this has become a norm, including even in India now. People have Pride marches on, in the month of, and the whole June is celebrated as the Pride month. So this was a march for equal rights of these people. And I think we have come a long way from those days as well. And I think discourse and, workshops or the dialogues that we constantly keep having is a great news to have for, the rights of the gay community. Okay, so what does it really mean to, have inclusivity? Now, inclusivity means to be open to everyone and not limited to certain people. In this regard to gender, this means that it includes establishments, schools, practitioners, government agencies, institutions, and so all are welcome regardless of their gender or their sexual expressions or their gender identities or expression. And diversity is a large, dynamic, rapidly changing sector, being and growing interconnectedness and willingness to explore and articulate new ideas. So these are the emerging concepts where diversity and inclusiveness is for the better functioning of society. And that is why we are actually discussing why diversity and why inclusion. Okay, so now, it's why do we need to really have this constant dialogue? Because gender is a very evolving process. It's continuously evolving. So it's not that, today you define a gender in a particular way, it exists in that format, but it is constantly evolving, and we need to update ourselves from the lingo, for the language, that is being used, and all of that. So because gender, in a course of a person's life is really associated with the interests that he has, the activities, the clothings that one wears, the professions that people take. And, so it's not the domain of one gender, but it's an evolving concept, of both the small and the larger sort of groups. So why talk about gender? Now, gender diversity we have seen has existed throughout history and all over the world, and we have all been in conversations, in as far as gender is concerned. Now, a person's gender identity greatly influences the way they interact and their life in general. So it's very important to sort of understand what gendered people really would understand, uh, you know, um, in these settings. Now, because we are in such a constrained or very narrow understanding of gender, which is a binary gender, it even more becomes important to open up the discourse for a larger gender recognition. Because genders who or non-binary people who exist outside the binary are often targets of disapproval, discrimination, and a lot of violence. And sometimes that violence is so subtle, but it is so integrated into the day-to-day life that it becomes like a microaggression at times. And people do become laughing stocks because they don't fit into the binary. So it's extremely important to really talk gender at a very, very early age, not only, not only in schools and colleges, but also, at homes. Now, a lot of times, the sex and gender is very interchangeably used. Now, this is based on a child's genitals. So, if a child is born with a certain genital, his gender gets assigned to him immediately after that. And we presume that, this is the gender of the child. And for some who, for whom the gender aligns with their biological sex, it's good enough. I mean, they needn't feel so threatened, but it's the problem when, the genders and the sex does not align. And that's the reason why we're talking about gender. And so gender assignment begins with the assignment of sex. However, it does not end there. A person's gender is a complex interrelationship between the three dimensions: body, identity, and social gender. It's very, very important how these, so that's why it's, it is in, like it's, you will say the sex or the gender of a person is the same, but it is not the same, and we will see how. Now, as far as the body is concerned, our experience of our own body, how societies, genders, bodies, and how others interact with us based on our body. So body forms are very important because that's what you actually position when you're moving around in society. And that's the first encounter with the social interactions that we have with our bodies, and issues of gender really start to emanate from there. Also, identity, the name we use to convey our gender is based deeply with an internal sense of self. So, you have the titles which are, you use Mr., Miss, and Mrs. for in a binary setup. But the non-binary lingo actually would change. So it would become mix or mux or miscellaneous, So because we are so used to the binary format that, speaking of terms like gender queer or gender fluid and other terms, gender expansion, gender creative, these are the terms which we are not used to. So how do we address? And sometimes it's a very gentle, this thing that we see a person who looks like a man and, we say Mr. And, if it's a female, then we answer them as this. But now there has been internationally, and, even when you're writing papers, the format is to write gender neutral language. And that's a way forward, sort of. And that's one of the great ways, and academia plays a very, very vital role in sort of inclusiveness, because this is where the education really starts. So, again, it's a great initiative, that schools and colleges are taking that initiative to take this movement forward. I mean, in a nutshell, a person's identity can correspond to or differ from the sex that were assigned to him at the time of his birth. The social, of course, it's a social, the gender is a social construct, and it is greatly influenced by individuals, the society, the culture that you're in, the religion sort of also sort of shapes in the way you think and the way you think about gender. So social roles and expectations. So sometimes maybe in families, families may be gender neutral, but when children move out into the society, they're expected to behave in a very binary fashion. And when they experience, especially the non-binary children, when they experience such a discrimination, because they're expected to behave in a particular way. Like people are told, oh, behave like a boy. I mean, why are you behaving like a girl if it's a boy? Or why are you behaving like a boy if it's a girl? So, these are some of the things. Or why do you play a boy sport? This is a very male dominated profession, or this is a very male dominated game, or this is a very, for dancing. I mean, Bharatanatyam is why are you dancing like a girl? So, a lot of these come actually out of the social, compulsions. So our genders are actually start getting to in the greater social arena. Now, for most societies, as I have said, that it's a binary concept, so rigidly male and the female, depending on the reproductive anatomy and the functions. But of course, there are about, X and Y, of course, we all know, but there are other 12 other across the genome, which govern the sex determination, and at least 30 genomic, expressions in the sex development. So, you can have variants of XXXY as XXY Klinefelter, which is Klinefelter syndrome, or XO or triple X, which is a superwoman, and many more such variants which are also seen as far as the genetic characterization is concerned. So who are we to really question the nature? So naturally occurring biological variation dispel the simplistic notion that there are just two sexes. And of course, brain plays a very key role in how we each experience our gender. And we see that these boundaries are really, really very blurred at times. Now, bodies themselves are gendered in the context of our social expectations. So we are masculinity or femininity, and we are equated to being less of a man or less of a woman. And the different degrees that are attributed decide which gender we are assigned really in that aspect. So this gendering of our bodies affects how we feel about ourselves, and how people interact with us. This is when the body actually begins to tell us that this is what is our gender. Now, of course, identity we have spoken to about in great details. It's mainly it's important because it's a person's makeup, which a person's makeup. It's very personal. It's a personal expression. So gender is a very personal expression, and that is the identity of a person. That is why it is so important to identify these genders as they exist. So because it's our internal experiences, and and naming of our gender becomes very important. So if you address somebody, like when somebody says Mrs. or some so and so, of course, well, doctor is a very gender neutral word, so it's good to go. But of course, some people do write doctress, DRS. So there are these kind of people still try to get these into the binary. But I think we are evolving from that. But it's a good thing, when you greet people, when you know their sexual identities, you immediately sort of become, it's a very welcoming gesture. So it's very important to really understand and identify these, these genders. Uh, and of course, individuals do not choose their gender, nor can they make any changes in it. However, the words somebody uses to communicate their gender identity may change over time, and this is of course depending on what is the system of the language which is being accepted in the community, or over a period of time, universally. Though there is no universal categorization of these languages, but communities do sort of tend to have their own identities. So sometimes they're very community specific gender identities as well. Uh, and and of course, these again, these gender languages as well, they are evolving and shifting. So today we see a particular gender language, which is a particular language, and then it sort of evolves. And we'll see, of course, there are more than 50 gender identities, and even more, and even that's why we put LGBTQIA plus. So it's an ongoing and shifting process. So we don't know what we're going to really end up, because it's forever evolving. Of course, we have said this, and the youth and adults, of course, are no longer bound to the gender binary. So I think the millennials have a better acceptance and inclusivity. And it's really great to see that such young minds, who are speaking of gender. I mean, we were so tongue-tied when it came to gender conversations, but we see that, the youth today is very open to this. And I think that's the reason why inclusivity even becomes even more easy and simpler in these kind of scenarios. Of course, gender queer is a very umbrella term, or it can be used, just to describe a person as a specific identity, which is a gender queer, which means it's a non-binary. So it can be used in that term to even connote the non-binary umbrella term. The language of gender, of course, as I have mentioned, that these are why these also become important. The pronouns that you use for them, and because language really shapes our perception of other people. So a particular language and that we use, for this gender, is what is going to build perceptions around their identity. So it's very important to also understand that. So you have a gender person who see themselves as having a gender, somebody who can identify with neuter gender. Rather than calling themselves neutral, they also say that they don't have any gender. They say that they are gender neutral. Cisgender, of course, is gender identity that aligns with their assigned sex at birth. Okay? Gender congruence is the feeling of harmony in our own gender. FTM is, of course, a person who assigned as a female at birth and whose gender changed into a boy or a man. Gender binary, of course, gender according to two discrete and opposite categories. Gender dysphoria, of course, this is a very common kind of fear or dissatisfaction. And I realized this particular term, especially when people say that I was not very comfortable in my male body, or I was not very comfortable in my female body. I always felt that I was not this person, who biologically I may be a woman, I still feel like a male, or biologically I'm a male and I don't feel like a male and I feel like a female. So you hear these kind of when you have dialogues with the non-binary people. Gender expansive is an umbrella term used for individuals who broaden their own culture's community-held definition of gender, including expectations of expressions, their identities, roles, and how they're perceived, and the gender norms that are there. Gender fluid, of course, people who have a gender or genders that change. So this is a very dynamic state. They change from one to the other gender, and they're not static in their own gender. So there is a movement. So there's a gender fluid category as well. Gender queer, we have spoken about. Intersex, of course, is a disorder of development. We see this in XXY, the XXY Klinefelter syndrome, where people have both the genitalia that are present, and so they have a different set of chromosomes. Their sexual organs are different, but this is a medical sexual development, disorder of that development. A trans boy, a trans girl, these are self-explanatory. Transgenders, we've heard, is an umbrella term for whose identity differ from their assigned sex. Transitioning, of course, refers to the steps of transgender, agender, or binary person taking in order to, switch to other genders, transition into in genders. Now, social gender, of course, why this? Because gender now, so far that we have been talking, we understand this is a social construct, and it includes expression, which is a way we communicate our gender to others through our, clothing, our hairstyles, our mannerisms, our professions, the sports that we like, all of these. So, the way we express the gendered, so-called binary gendered perceptions in society, and how we interact with people. So it also includes how individuals, communities, and societies perceive, interact with each other, and whether we conform to the normal binary or not. Now this starts very early in age, when the genders are assigned, and these are when we tell our children that a girl will play with a Barbie, and a boy will play with a GI Joe. So if a girl plays with a GI Joe, or the boy is holding a doll, we suddenly want to change and say, oh, this is a girl's toy, it's not yours. So these are the the gender assignment does not stop only with our own identities, but also the tools that we are using, or the colors. So the pink is for girls and blue is for boys. So the clothes that we wear, of course now we have a concept of unisex clothes. So the women can really go to the men's lounge and wear, and the men can actually borrow the saris from women. So it's beautiful. I mean, there's a whole gender expansion of all these things as well that is happening. Now, of course, what really influences is the family, the culture, the peer, the school, the community, the media, religion, the way the kind of people that we interact with. And because these are very, these are greatly entrenched in our culture. And so, oh, that's great. So now we have that allows for inclusion. We have the. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, because I think thank you. Yeah, because my net sort of slowed down. Okay. So, what are the provisions in the Indian legal system that allows inclusion of, the non-binaries? We have the Constitution of India, which is, which offers equality, non-discrimination, and equal opportunity in terms of employments. And this is, given to us in Article 14, 15, 16, and Article 226, 266, 226 as well. And of course, we had a very problematic section in the Indian Penal Code, Section 377, which denied a person's right to, to have his sexual, because Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code actually criminalized gay sex unions. And so it was problematic, but it of course went against the the Article 21, which is protection of life and personal liberty and dignity. So now Section 377 did not allow for a person's dignity. It clearly criminalized their identity based on their sexual preferences, and this was really problematic. And it led to a lot of people really hiding their sexualities for the fear of being discriminated and being being a victim of violence. But fortunately in 2001, the NAS Foundation first raised the issue of Article 377 in the Delhi High Court. Fortunately, when I was with the Lawyers Collective, we were working on Section 377, decriminalizing Section 377. And this is way back in 2005. And, we met people from the NAS Foundation and really tried to understand a lot of their problems. And, we were part of this movement of decriminalizing Section 377. But of course, it was not such an easy ride. And people were really, there was a lot of criminalization. There's a lot of, victimization of these people. I remember when I was working with the Lawyers Collective when I was in Delhi, and we had a lesbian couple who fled, and we had to offer them protection and put them in a hotel, and we had to keep shifting them to different places so that the police do not sort of come and intercept them. because their parents had raised a missing report. And that's how, this whole thing started. So I can understand, because, we saw shifting them to different places so that they are not traced. So this was way back even in 2005. I mean, there were these kind of problems, that happened. And of course, I mean, the Delhi High Court actually said that they would decriminalize, and that this Section 377 was clearly illegal, and went against the provisions of Article 21 of the Constitution, and so they sort of scrapped it, but they sort of said it was illegal. But this, of course, went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court reversed it, unfortunately. Now that was a kind of a setback for the community, for the liberal society, and for the large sections of the media. And they demanded that a larger bench of the Supreme Court should hear the matter on 377. Of course, not many judges were very comfortable, because it's not that these binaries don't exist only among people in very highly educated communities, even the legal communities. So we were also a part of advocacy groups where we sensitize the legal fraternity as far as Section 377 was concerned, which included lawyers and judges, whom you had to tell them that what are the issues of this, and how this draconian law actually prevented people from having safe spaces. And with the great initiative, and there was a landmark judgment in September 2018, which was so recent that finally there was a victory, and Section 377 was scrapped. It was decriminalized, and clearly, we are still going ahead with so many of our draconian laws. Now we see it in the current scenario. The sedition laws that are there, which are absolutely archaic. They are colonial laws, and no longer applicable in the current scenario. So we can really do away with all these laws. And fortunately, we got away with Section 177. And one of the judges actually commented and said, we are very sorry. They actually apologized to the community for having, taken so long to actually decriminalize this. Because, imagine from 200, at least I was into this thing in 2005. And so imagine the plight of those people who do not get equality and are being discriminated, for so long. So they've really waited so long. But are the problems really over? The problems really are not over, really, because it's not on paper, but the society at large need to understand these issues and embrace. And that's why we are talking about inclusivity in society and at different spaces. Of course, I mentioned to you the case of Dominic D'Souza, who was he was a gay rights he was actually a HIV/AIDS activist. He was a known gay. Now he was fighting very, very aggressively against Section 377. Now, the first time he discovered he had HIV/AIDS was when he was thrown into the jail for 377. And people started asking him, because he was a gay, and HIV was, the first cases when in Atlanta, when it was discovered in Los Angeles. It was the gay community who who was discovered to have a HIV infection. And then it was known as, a disease of the gay. But then we saw and we know that it was not a disease related only to the gay, but also to the heterogeneous community or the heterosexuals. So Dominic D'Souza was a very, very, he was one of the great activists who was not only fighting against Section 377, but he had the Positive People's Organization, which was working for the HIV/AIDS empowerment. And, they have their own set of discrimination issues, when the epidemic had just come into India way back in 1983. And this person was actually, put in a sanatorium because one, he was a gay, and then he had HIV/AIDS infection. So he went through all this, turmoil and torture and absolute Dasamini. Of course, if I mean, I'm sure some of you must have seen the movie called My Brother Nikhil, which is based on his life, and some of you who have not seen, I think it's a great eye opener in terms of how inclusivity and how HIV/AIDS infections and about gender issues. I think this movie is a great movie and an eye opener. I think those who have not seen should really see this. Um, Now, the key issues here, of course, we have been discussing so far, of course, have been discrimination in society. And because of this, they become a very, targeted community. They become a very vulnerable community and are subjected to a lot of physical and mental harm. Because there is no legal gender recognition, it limits their social identification as well. One of the biggest challenges that this community really faces is access to healthcare. So, a lot of times because, they are so stigmatized, they don't come into they don't get treated by mainstream healthcare setups, so they go and get treated by, quacks and, people who do not understand medicine. And of course, this was very important. And I really got to know this because we were also working with the HIV/AIDS community who were the gay community. And, they would not take treatment from the mainstream because doctors themselves were not sensitized to the issue of gender at that time. And they would really avoid going to the mainstream medical establishments. And also, I mean, because I mean, there was a little contradiction in, when there were HIV/AIDS intervention programs that happened to have safe sex for the homosexual community. At that time, of course, the challenge for NACO, that is the AIDS organization that was handling the government organization, it actually had interventions for condom distribution to HIV, I mean, the gay community. But unfortunately, when when the workers used to go and distribute condom, they themselves were victims of a lot of violence from the police, because they would then say that you are abetting 377, which is a crime. And of course, forget about people who were people would just be thrown into lockups because on issues of 377. So it was a great challenge, whereas the government initiated program, but the great challenge on so the cops, so they were not really sensitized to the issue of gender at that time. So there were a lot of health issues that emerged at that time. uh, Now, of course, existence of these non-binary, people into a binary society has a lot of mental and emotional trauma. They have their day-to-day problems. So it starts from the time they are, actually leaving their homes. They are treated in a particular way. They may not directly be addressed, but if a person of a non-binary would pass, people would laugh or make some gestures, which is very insulting. And emotionally, that can become a great challenge for some very, very sensitive people. So micro aggression, which is a form of so it's almost like a daily racist comments to these marginalized groups. So it's important that we address these or very, very urgently. Also, like I said in the beginning, that we are also used to the binary language, that we also find the non-binary languages very difficult. But it's important to now integrate them sooner than later, because in order to have a very, very inclusive environment. And trust me, when people address you, understanding your identities, the first thing when you say hello to somebody, I think that's the first impression, and that is sort of inclusivity. So that is the beginning of inclusivity. No matter how much you might say inclusivity or have thousands of workshops, you still would. I remember a comment on, when this was put up on one group, somebody said, oh, wow, must. And I had a problem with that particular language, because this is how, the very discourse is mocked at. And it's a problem. It's a problem with people even in educated circles. So I think it's very important to be sensitive to the gender sensitive language. Now, how do we bridge this gap? Of course, at workplace, there is, you can have a very inclusive environment, removing stigma and discrimination and barriers to embrace, people from different genders at workplace, and foster inclusivity, dispelling the myths of millennials, discussing diversity at the level of students at the workplace, and highlighting what's needed to help people become leaders in workplace. So this is important because they're great leaders. They're intelligent, very creative people. So we need to take, when we are discussing diversity at workplace, and so many leaders can emerge out of these. Now, of course, young are very enthusiastic, and I see that. I mean, there's so many participants who have come here to attend this particular lecture, and so already we are seeing that there's a lot of acceptance as far as diversity and inclusivity is concerned. So we have to create these comfort zones for people, and create safe spaces, safe environments where we are talking these very normally, and make it a very streamlined process. Now, the best practices, of course, is inclusion. Education is very important. Now, this should happen to parents, teachers, professionals, as even earlier, was mentioned by Professor Deepak. He mentioned that, we need to have these. And then since these courses are, these talks go on every year in your college, it's a great thing to really know. Of course, the HR needs to be very sensitive to these, and, the hiring strategies need to sort of change. It's very important to offer a supportive and enabling environment in schools, colleges, institutions, and workplaces. And of course, evolving these non-discrimination policies that include sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender, put these gender-based notices at very prominent places, because, with the sexual harassment at workplace, it's mandated as per the policy that you need to put these at very conspicuous places in the establishment. So something like that also need to be integrated. So, creation of inclusive workplace forms that we need to have. But of course, now most of the forms that we see, and most even your passports have, non-binaries included. And we need to have these, the LGBT statements of inclusion in our mission statements, in our policies. And I think making inclusion as a mandatory education is a way forward. It's very important, when we are sort of, we are very enthusiastic about, putting all these inclusion criteria or inclusion guidelines, but we should really not forget the community itself. So there is the constant need to have a dialogue with these people, because a lot of bills that are passed are made without taking the stakeholders into consideration. So it's very, very important. And some of the private persons bills have sort of been challenged because they have not taken the community's perspective. So it's very important to really take the perspective of the community as well. And I think it should also be included in the anti-ragging policy statement in institutions. So the way forward, of course, is to decriminalize gay unions, enact laws which protect the human rights of the LGBT community, and they should be allowed to apply in whatever employment they want to get into. Of course, we need to also work on marriage equality and civil unions, which are not, these are the difficulties and the challenges we face in India today. It's not as streamlined as that. Of course, gay parents' adoption rights need to be addressed as well, because even as per the adoption acts, the gay parents are not entitled to, adopt children or go in for surrogacy, or even, other techniques of adoption. So, of course, inheritance laws are something that need to be enacted. And of course, have your own clergy. Having your own person to solemnize the marriage. Now, the worldwide research has shown that there is a strong link between, if you take more diverse and, inclusivity, there are better financial outcomes. And a McKinsey report reported that, the top 25 of the firms had gender equality and diversity on there, and gender diverse people on their executive teams. And it had shown that, there's great profitability. So it's important, I mean, even in terms of economics that, to build a place which is, towards building a more inclusive society, which is diverse and which is a diverse workplace. This is a diverse mix of voices lead to better discussions, decisions, and outcomes for everyone, is what Sindhu Pichai has to say. I mean, I think this should be the board that we all need to have at prominent places. We welcome all races, all religions, countries of origin, gender identities, sexual orientations, all abilities and disabilities, all spoken languages, all ages, everyone. We stand here with you. You are safe here. And this is inclusion. I would conclude my formal talk, but I would be open to any kind of discussion, questions, comments. So we can have the dance of inclusion. And thank you very much once again, Dr. Amit, for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you for being there. Really, it was wonderful, very enlightening, very, very intriguing. We'll work on this paper. Thank you for giving the ideas.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So, Deepak?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Rachna ma'am, thank you so much for this wonderful lecture. It made me remember a few of the things which I had presented in the college, right from a paper on Indian cinema. I had talked on about homosexuality and gender identities in Indian cinema. Amit madam will remember that paper. And also,
yes, and also we had
seminar.
last year Omkar Bhatkar sir.
Yes,
Yeah?
yes. And even in history seminar, I had talked about the same talk on Indian mythology and how the queer identities have been identified in Indian mythology. All those stories were back to me, like the Ayyappa story and Shiva Mohini union. So it was a wonderful talk. And every time when we have been discussing this in gender equity, we have been talking that stop stereotyping that color coding for the boys, the toys for the boys and toys for the girls. And again, you have stressed on those points. I think we have come from a generation where we had these stereotypes, but if the present generation is with an open mind, I think their children won't suffer the kind of things that we had, as a boy. No, this is the thing which you have to do as a boy. This is the thing you have to do as a girl. Even our textbooks also would say the same thing, like Ram शाळेत जा आणि मुलगी आहे तिने ती झाडू काढ. So these kind of
Deepak sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I would just like to add to your point, as ma'am has today discussed about that binary system of identification. Just few days back, I heard the school lecture. I mean, the work has to be done at the very foundation level, because I heard the school instructions that were given to children. If you are a boy, color boy's picture, the boy picture, and if you're a girl, you have to. The teacher was telling students to color the girl picture that was drawn, and she was very particular about if someone was drawing, somebody had painted both. So she was saying that why have you colored both? Because you are a boy, you are supposed to color only boy's picture that is drawn. And kids were so small, they were not even understanding the gender of they did not have a proper gender identification also. In spite of that, such instructions were given. So they are trained to think that way. That has to be stopped.
Absolutely. Also, it's very surprising that, schools would, the dress code, of course, is important. The girls will wear a frock and the boys will wear it's so funny. And, even if the girls would wear, boys' shoes, those were not allowed. Because, I used to, this is my personal experience. I don't know, maybe in my school, because where I was brought up, I would wear, because those were convenient, those would close your feet properly. So I would wear the boys' shoes because I was also an athlete, and there I had no problem. But when I bought those shoes for my daughter, the principal, remarked that, no, you have to tell your mother to buy the bellies for you. So I was very shocked. And this is happening, when sometimes it is not there. And, you find this even in the current scenario where the dress code has to change. It cannot be like this is a boy's dress and this is a girl's dress, and so these are, serious. These are serious issues where we sort of make it so binary that the non-binary expression is threatened completely in this scenario. So you're right. And, even these color codes. And of course, I think the next time you make a label, I think you should have that blue color for the female and the pink. You also did that binary. See, and, this has happened very innocently. We still go by that. Like, so if, I'm told that, pink is for girl. And so, you have bought I think the symbol that you've made in your logo.
Yes.
That's pink is
again the symbol which has been coming all through the reference images also.
Yeah, right. So, we are somewhere very innocently into this conversation of the binary. But we need to, and that's the reason why we need to make so much of effort, because you can't be discriminating people based on this. And we know, because even in the university, we have seen, where I've been in the university as a student for very long, and I see that these kind of discriminations happen. And there's so much of bullying that keeps happening that I think it should be integrated, and people need to be educated at every level. It's not that, once you take one lecture and it's over. I think it has to be an ongoing kind of and people should sign that thing that they cannot discriminate on the basis of gender, and give them a leaflet, which says that what is this about gender inclusion. So it's very, very important. I think Junjunwala has taken a great initiative, and I'm really wish you all the luck for taking this forward, and with such dynamic people on board, Dr. Amit and everybody. I think it's wonderful to see, this discourse actually liven up.
And there is a funny part also, ma'am, that it depends from person to person, that if Ranveer Singh goes in a skirt, he'll get lots of comments on his post. But if some common person comes like that, he'll be trolled for it.
Absolutely. True. Yeah, and no, and it can actually, these are day-to-day problems, like imagine a child who's grown up with these issues, right since the time he was a small child and walking very effeminately. We hear people saying, oh, he's very pansy, and he's very, these kind of language that we use. My God, this was troubling, especially when I became aware, I became very sensitive to the language that I use. So, it's very important. The moment you realize,
I have faced this as a male classical dancer. It was questioned to me always that why are you learning this dance? Why? And after they have seen my performance, nobody has questioned me. Okay?
Exactly.
Wow, this is a very beautiful performance that you have given.
Yeah.
But before seeing that, everybody has that notion that no, classical dance is supposed to be done by females.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wanted to say that it has to work at a very grassroots level, because I have often committed a mistake, like when I used to scold my son and he used to cry, immediately, it would just pop out from my mouth that, are you a girl to cry? And then afterwards, I literally introspected on it and I said, what a big crime. Forget about crime. I thought I'm committing a sin.
Yeah.
And for some time, my son was not crying whenever he wanted to, because he will be branded as a girl. And it was so sad that I thought this was my sin that he is paying for.
Yeah.
And then when he grew up, after taking him into confidence, lot of confidence, I said, it is nothing wrong in crying. And now he's gradually opened up, So I think at a very grassroots level, at home, it may be absolutely unconsciously, we just speak out because we are trained in such a system. And I'm not blaming system now. Since I'm aware, I should be conscious about it.
Right.
So let me think about myself, that what am I doing? And if it happens, your work has to start from home, then probably the change will come.
Exactly. And, it's very unfortunate that, you see Angelina Jolie, one of her children is she dresses up in a way, and, she's being told so much and she's so young. And this it can really the milestones of a child and the development of a child really gets hampered, because of the non-binary, I mean the binary language that we set them for. And it's very sad, it's really people, I mean this dysphoria that I spoke about, it's so rampant in these communities. And some people are not only that, some people are even forced to marry into relationships which are heterosexual when they are gays in the first place. So people are to a whatever degree, because it's like an honor, it's like an honor kind of a thing, if you're not fitting into this, you are somewhere committing a crime by not following these norms. And it's pathetic, people who are facing it, it's so much of fear in them. They can't talk openly about it. They can't access help. They can't, they don't find safe spaces. Of course, the privileged are the people who are never into this game, but it's generally the middle class and the lower middle class, even the lower classes maybe, but then, yeah, even for hijras and all these people, I mean, it's a big, big problem. I mean, I met Lakshmi, who's, she's one of the very prominent. And I mean, the first time I was in this march where we were in Jantar Mantar, and there walks one very tall, gorgeous looking, and I was jaw dropped because she was so gorgeously dressed. And I said, who's this? She had an aura about herself, and, she was so beautifully dressed up. She was the queen of that thing. And, it was good to see them. So color is beautiful and people are beautiful, and, all my sort of misconceptions slowly started, because it was not easy for me, being a doctor, maybe being probably, straight, handling straight people. It was very difficult, for the first time, it was like a shock to me. And I'm sure people are going through this, but of course I keep a very gender neutral face, at least. I don't sort of react. So that was good. In fact, in one of the interviews, one of the guys who was interviewing me, in the Lawyers Collective, he came, Vivek Diwan, and I didn't know him much at that time, and I was not too educated about gender. For me, it was no big deal, really. So, he interviewed, and then he said, I'm a gay. So I sunk in my chair because, so now what am I supposed to do? So what response, because I was not ready for sort of either talking on gender issues or something. I said, oh God, next thing he's going to ask me about what is your understanding of gender? And I had none at that time. So I can understand, the discomfort and that, agitation. And we should identify that. And I went on to take a workshop with the, Humsafar Trust, and, where my eyes and my mind really opened up to this whole inclusion. And, so, yeah.
Professor Reena Puradkar is here. Reena, Rachna ji is all there for you also.
Yes,
The
yes, ma'am.
attendance has actually gone down quite a bit. I mean, people have run away. Are they not interested in
Lecture.
There was a lecture.
They were lecture.
Yes, ma'am.
They were there.
They had
They were there
lectures.
till the
Okay.
session. I mean, more than halfway they were there, and I think
Oh,
they
okay.
have lectures, so they have shifted to their classrooms of the lectures.
Okay.
But most of them have, before dropping out, they had left comments that it was really a wonderful session, because this is the need for the time. Even the younger generation needs to be sensitized about all these things.
Yes.
And we are happy that the gender equity is at least, we have reached some minuscule where the students are quite open about the acceptance that needs to be given to the people, and that sensitization has started in the college. So we are happy about it.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think
Thanks,
the young generation is brilliant.
Reena has been part of our
Hi.
together for value-added course, and Rachna ji also was there. We all participated in that. So
It was
Reena,
wonderful session, Rachna ji, wonderful session. I literally,
Thank you.
the way you made that binary distinction is not required and why it is not required, I felt superb. It was like really, it should be worked from the grassroots level that we need to be.
Yeah.
And like giving as the toys, as Deepak stated, that toys, and even though the Pranavi madam stated that yes, what happened to her child in the school, why you
Yeah.
are wearing this kind of dress. So
Absolutely.
somewhere it's the responsibility lies on the shoulder of the teachers, parents, and naturally then we can groom our children in that manner, so naturally they will be the carrier of this. But if they don't know how to treat them, then otherwise they will go on more on whatever the traditional distinction is. So we have to
Absolutely.
speak with them. Yeah, we have
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes, these, I mean, even if you bring up your children in a very gender neutral way, I mean, they go outside and they say, oh, no, only boys play this, or a girl, there's a girl sport, there's a boy sport. So they all learn it from the society. So, gender really defines, and, sometimes it's okay for people who are, the, no, the binary, for them, it's not a difficulty because they are, aligned with their sexual orientation. But for the non-binaries, it's a great challenge. And, from small things, like, if they are playing, they're very small toddlers and, they are just maybe few years old, 3-4 years old. And then they are talking like that. It's a problem. Because maybe that boy is carrying a doll. The other guy will say, are you a girl? So, these kind of things happen. It's a big problem. And also parents need to educate themselves, and society, because no justice can happen unless it's a social justice or socially. It goes very seamlessly into the society. We don't talk about, we also take it as very normal. And colonization has, of course, marred a lot of things, for us. We were a very vibrant society, colorful, vibrant, with sexual orientations, and there are all sorts of things.
and now somewhere that dogmas of the religion we need to come out of it.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
And we need to reread and reinterpret the religion also. That also matters a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks to you.
Yeah,
Superb
thanks.
session.
Welcome.
Thanks, Amit ma'am, and
Always a
thanks
pleasure.
Deepak sir and Pranali madam for arranging such a wonderful session for teachers as well as for the students.
Yeah. We have Siddhant. Any special comment?
I mean, like most of the discussion solved my queries. I mean, I had a query, but there was one
Yes,
slide that
actually,
talks about
same
bridging
here.
the gap, and all my doubts were clear eventually. And I mean, like, I would say, like, in the upcoming years as a student, I was very ignorant about gender, and I always maintained that, maintain gender equality, and I would just put my hands down, and that's it. I would leave the conversation. Even till today, I mean, anywhere the discussions about gender keep on, I always remain very detached from these things. And sessions like these help me to engage and listen to everyone who share ideas about how we should talk about gender equality. And there's one thing I wanted to ask to Rachna ji is, what if we could start educating about gender inclusivity at a rural level? Basically at urban level, we have all these facilities. We have uh, schools, hospitals, etc. But at rural level, where there is a balance of tradition and modernity, how do we promote gender inclusivity in education at rural areas? Because if the development starts over there, then it will progress much further in the upcoming years.
Absolutely, absolutely. But the thing is, you'll be surprised that there's more gender neutrality in the villages and the rural areas.
Okay, okay.
So the culture has not really gone. It's somewhere we are in the urban areas, we are more colonial in
Yeah.
our understanding and approach. So while it is good to say that rural interventions, but I think they're more easily accepted.
I was
See some
about
of the Marathi movies. I mean, I forget the names, but have spoken very vividly on these issues. So of course it's good to have, but first you should be a part of the for the Pride March every year. So that's the way forward, because it's sometimes very bold step to take, that even solidarity with these people, and trust me, they're so good. The first time I shared this with Dr. Amit, and one of the guys, the first time I was in Lawyers Collective sitting on my chair and I was doing something on my computer, and this person who doesn't know me, I have never seen him before, he just comes and puts his hand on the shoulder and says, "Hi, Rach." So I was like, oh my God, nobody ever addresses me. Forget first name. They always call me Dr. Rachna Bharadwaj. So I was at my wit's end. This was in 2005 and I was absolutely gender naive. And he says, Rach, and it was so warm, heartwarm coming, and, they invited me to their little, movie session where, we were sitting on the floor and there was a movie going on and we were sitting comfortably. So for me, that was the first exposure. I found it so, so much of warmth I felt also with these people, and it's a different world altogether. It's a different, you go to a different world altogether. It's not something which is this. So becoming and being, being one of them, even standing with them is a big thing, because they realize, that, the binaries are not discriminating with the non-binaries. So even if you have to attend a pride march with these people, that is the step one. That is inclusion, but we fear because we don't want to be associated, because we ourselves feel that this is going to leave a taboo on us. So if you might feel, oh, I will go, but your parents will say, please don't go. Don't go there. So it's like that, it's a very complex issue. It's not as good as, chalo, let's start it on paper and sab khatam ho gaya. No, it's not that at all. It's got layers and layers of problem, and the approaches have to be very, very gradual, very slow, very, at an academic level, one needs to do this. And trust me, parents are the first people who will pounce at the PTA for integrating these courses into the mainstream, because sex education is a big problem, integrating that, why do you have to have sex? So we have this indirect way of talking, and getting into the mainstream. So that's the biggest challenge. So I think while the idea is great,
the whole idea of deconstruction has to be revived.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think what also, Deepak is saying is that, the younger generation, I find a lot of hope in younger generation and
Absolutely.
the millennials, all of you, much, much younger. They are the ones who can, without, they don't have so much of baggage as we have. I mean, I had a hard time, sort of accepting this, because I used to get so scared of hijras when, you see them, meet them when you're traveling in trains, So I used to be like very wary of them. But now I'm comfortable, even if they say something, I'll smile. And, that's it. Not even give anything, but even that smile really works. And they'll smile back at you.
Yes.
Now,
So that
we need to
sort of
see
come in.
the younger generation, they talk very freely to these
Exactly. Exactly.
So they don't mind anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to remind to both of you, Deepak and Pranali, the movie that, the short film that we liked very much, that was Beauty Ka Uske Saath Kya Lena Dena Hai. The actor who was a transgender, she is in one of the Marathi serials.
Oh.
Yeah, I forgot the name of the serial. I was just, surfing, and suddenly I saw her.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I was so happy, and she looks so beautiful.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So I think when in urban areas, yes, this incorporation is gradually happening. I think in rural areas, it depends on the culture that they are having. For example, in Aligarh, where my in-laws come from, their inclusion of transgender is very normal. And they are part of the society, and there is nothing abnormal about it. But still, we have the problems with gays and lesbians. This is a big problem of inclusion, because that is considered as abnormal. But this was like, it's natural, so we can't help. It's there. So this has to come. So the whole idea of unlearning is very important first.
In fact, the more you learn, the more you have to unlearn.
Unlearn more. And
so
Sneha madam is there.
Like this, you have to go like that,
Yeah. I want to, Sneha madam, you want to say something? Hello, Sneha madam?
Yes.
Please.
I'm listening to you, and same experiences shared by me. As a child, we were bought like, you are a girl and you are a boy, you have to behave like this. But I'm really happy to share that my mother never treated me as a girl. She said, you have to work. If you want to be in the society, be strong, don't cry, don't hesitate to do things what you wish to do. And really, I really feel that approach helped me to be what I am today. And another thing is, by teaching in TY classes especially, we have some short stories which include these topics. And nowadays I feel that students are little comfortable. Beforehand, it was not the situation. Simple example रहता था, मैं बच्चों को बोलती थी कि if your husband's friends come, then you will treat them like anything. ये बनाओ वो बनाओ, भाभी जी आपके हाथ का चाय, भाभी जी आपके हाथ के पोहे, सब चलता है. If your friends come, then will you allow your husband to prepare such things? And nowadays boys prepare very good things. They are chefs also, and we appreciate. Till today, the students hesitate to say, नहीं madam, बाकी हमारी friend लोग क्या कहेंगी? That approach has to change now, and I'm trying to change it through the syllabus, whatever I'm teaching.
Yes, yes.
Nowadays, little changes there.
Yes.
Girls are ready to change, but they don't want the framework to get disturbed. और सबको ये लगता है नहीं मैडम, बाकी घर में सासू माँ नहीं रहेगी या बड़े लोग नहीं रहेंगे तो ठीक है, लेकिन वो उनके रहते हुए हम हमारे हस्बैंड को काम कैसे कर देंगे? दैट वहां से अभी तक चेंज करना है.
मैं घर में भी करती हूँ.
कभी कभी मुझे लगता है नहीं, क्योंकि we are talking about 21st century and we feel that the change is there, but there are situations where we feel that we have to change a lot. We need to work hard for changing, especially for such sensitive matters. बहुत ज्यादा काम करना पड़ेगा हमें, ऐसे मुझे लगता है.
Yeah, work is absolutely, and but we should not get intimidated about because of the vastness of work. I think every little small step taken in the direction is a step forward. And it is these small steps which will really, and I think you should really, congratulate yourself, because I think it's a great initiative that Jhunjhunwala has taken. It's no easy feat, for all of you bigwigs to really come and speak on a topic of gender inclusion, because there is so much of taboo, but you are speaking about it, and it's a great thing, So it's a big step, and coming from academic authorities has a lasting impact. Teachers are the first, they are the building blocks of society. And I have a lot of respect for teachers, and I respect all the teachers, no matter how big I have become. But Dr. Amit and Dr. Kanchana Mahadevan and all the teachers, I still consider them as teachers, because they are really doing great work. So I think you as teachers are doing phenomenal job, and all the best to all of you for creating this. Don't get disheartened. This will definitely, we will win.
What I feel is we should always insist that we should have feminine or masculine is not a problem. We should treat each and every human being as a human being.
Exactly.
गर्ल हूँ या बॉय हूँ ये इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है ना. मैं एक ह्यूमन बीइंग हूँ, एंड आई शुड बी वेरी सेंसिटिव अबाउट everyone's self respect. That should be told to the students. Change हो रहा है, लेकिन बहुत कम हो रहा है, ऐसे लग रहा है.
Yeah, but that's all right. That's all right.
है. We have to work hard.
Yeah, we have to work. And these gender constraints are even with very educated people. They don't accept people.
I remember 10 to 15 years back when such topics I used to discuss, एक लड़का उठ के चला गया, ये क्या बात कर रही है मैडम?
That's why I was wondering whether the students who have felt
like that. But nowadays they take part in discussion. They want to change. वो बोलते हैं मैडम आप जो बोल रही है वो हमें समझ में आ रहा है, लेकिन we don't know, we are not confident that how we can implement this in our family. It's like that, but at least that process has started. I'm happy for it.
Absolutely. Also, it's great to know, because I was taking a lot of HIV/AIDS awareness programs for children in schools, and I found that and this was the age group between maybe 12 to 15. So I think 12 or 13 to 15 years old, the 9th and the 10th standard. So those were the groups that were, and you would be surprised the kind of questions they ask. They are way forward. Even I did not know certain lingo, which they were using, and asking me questions based on that. So, this generation is much smarter. They're more receptive, they're more open. It's just that we need to be less interfering in this thing, trying to drive things. They're very smart. They will see it somewhere and they will know it all. So, we needn't worry. We are probably in these things. I think we are a little bit in the safe zone. I think we should just let them grow at their pace in the way they are taking the society forward, and put our effort and faith in that.
Hello, I just wanted to say, any student want to ask a question, a query, we can take up. You can unmute yourself and ask. Yeah, Natasha, Sakshi always has is an active participant of our gender equity. Madiha always there, Kulsum, and Pooja is always there as such.
Ma'am, no queries. Ma'am actually explained very nicely.
Yes.
And actually, we need more discussions on such topics. And our college is very foresighted because we took sessions on these topics, which are considered very taboo.
Yeah.
Even what Sneha madam said, I just had recently an experience on this. One day my mother was slightly not keeping well, so I was just washing few utensils. The neighbor comes and she is asking my mother that भैया बर्तन भी धोते हैं? तो my mother, तो क्या हो गया? I mean, and then her face was like, हमारे घर पे कोई नहीं करता. So it was really very funny.
Yeah, I've been trolled actually for this. Sneha madam knows this very well. She knows very well all the stories that how I am trolled because of my husband cooking. And he very derogatory remarks I have had, that if I'm in the restaurant and I go with my son to eat, oh, today your husband is not cooked? I'm cross asked. And once they said that there is haldi kunku ka function. So is your husband also going to organize?
Oh my God, that was.
And I was discussing this with Pranali once and with Deepak also, and also Sneha madam about this. And I was saying that now I don't feel anything. Let them speak, because I can't go on doing that. I'm doing at my level. And gradually the youngsters are coming up. Sometimes I confront them, but at that moment, I think it's not the right time to confront. There comes a situation and a platform like this, when they participate, they realize that this is not good. And we should come out of it. It should, the change come, the problem is not to convince, problem is not to uneducated people, you can speak to them. And they learn because they have nothing in their mind. But educated people, it is so difficult to convince them. And I find it more difficult dealing with people who are educated. And this is coming from colleagues to me. That isn't your husband organizing haldi kunku, and isn't he cooking today? So you have come to the restaurant. So such things are there, and it is so hurting initially. But then I say that this is how the system is, and this is how they are brought up. So can't help it.
Even that day I was telling my mom that after marriages you are telling Saubhagyavati. I said, why? Okay, by birth itself, when a girl is born, by birth itself, she is Saubhagya for the entire world. That whether she is married or not, whether her husband is there or not, she is Saubhagyavati forever.
Yeah. So true, absolutely.
And I discussed with Reena also about this, and I find it so, it's so petty actually, and this is with educated people. So how to tell them, you please unlearn first. Because they think they are so learned.
More with the educated people.
I think what you stated,
learn it.
What you stated, Saubhagyavati should not go only for girls. It should be for the boys too.
Yes, it can be for anyone.
That we need to understand.
Yes.
That it is bhagya for each and every parent to have a child. Then why you say that only for the girl? It is bhagya of the boy that he got this little girl. So naturally, or boy, whoever it might be.
And precisely these are questions which are their personal question. Why are they not married? Why they don't have a child? Whether they are planning for things. Who are we to ask them?
I don't know. This is the first conversation when you enter. At this age, do you have children?
Yeah. Are you?
At this age, it is, do you have children? At Pranali's age, are you married?
Married.
If not, a big question, what happened that you are not married? And a
Yeah.
very young girl, when are you planning? So this is something which is very disturbing, and these stereotypes have to be, have to be erased.
I think it has been a very beautiful discussion which can go on and on.
I know.
Yes,
Thank you
and
so much,
we can
Rachna.
wind up the program. Yeah.
I'll request Pranali ma'am to formally give the vote of thanks.
Yes,
Thank you, Pranali madam. After
Yes,
your
thanks
class
to
and
you.
you brought all your students.
No, no, it's my duty, and I enjoy it so much. I enjoy it so much.
Thank you.
And the students have given a very good feedback.
Very good
Yes.
feedback, please.
So shall I start, ma'am?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. On behalf of Ramniranjan Jhunjhunwala College, I propose sincere vote of thanks to today's respected guest speaker, Dr. Rachna Bharadwaj ma'am. In true sense, as Amit ma'am said, we have met a stalwart today. Thank you, ma'am, for this wonderful session and spending your precious time with us. I also take this opportunity to express our deep sense of gratitude towards our management of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti and Director of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti, Dr. Usha Mukherjee Madam, for all her support and motivation. We propose our sincere thanks to Principal Dr. Himanshu Davda sir for his continuous inspiration to organize such programs. We are thankful to Vice Principal Captain Praveen Nayak sir, Dr. Sneha Devaskar Madam, who is also our Gender Equity Committee Vice Principal in charge. Thank you, Sneha Madam, for being here with us and supporting us in every way. Thank you so much. And Dr. Kiran Polvankar sir, Vice Principal, for his cooperation. We are thankful to Dr. Bhushan Arekar, sir, IQSC coordinator, for being helpful and very supportive to all of us. We thank Dr. Madhura Kalamkar Madam, Principal of Law College, for attending today's program and for her special comments. Thank you, Dr. Amit Valmiki Madam and Deepak sir, for your valuable contribution in organizing and conducting this program. Thank you, Reena Madam, for being here with us. Thank you, Vaishaki Madam. I think she's gone for the lecture now. Thank you. Thanks to our supporting staff for the technical support. Thank you, Arbas, for spreading this message in all the students groups. And a very big thank you to all my dear students for attending this program. Thank you so much.
Thank you, one and all. So,
It was a very nice session.
really,
Good beginning we have done. So I'm happy, and I wish that we have more and more brainstorming sessions like this.
I like to request, those little participants who have remained till the last, if you could just switch on cameras. The students, if they could switch on their cameras, we can have a group photo. Anyways, I have clicked a lot. So if the students could also just switch on their videos, if they are comfortable. Many a time they're not comfortable. Yeah, I'll just click one thing with the teachers. Done, ma'am.
Thank you. You have to say 1, 2, 3. Otherwise, you're.
Yeah. I did it. Yeah. I'll end the meeting, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was very nice interacting with you, ma'am.
Thank you. Bye-bye.